When people talk about the hatred between George and Don, I think part of it comes from the fact that Dokken wasn't a band that started with George in mind.
I think that Burning Like a Flame is an amazing song, probably my favorite.
I think buying the 1997 Shadow Life album was one of the biggest wastes of 12 bucks you can imagine.
Breaking the Chains, the album, is not the hard rock album you think it is.
A couple beers and a back massage would probably get you right in the mood too, if you know what I'm saying.
Dokken was a much more mature band. They weren't lighting shit on fire like
Right.
Motley. They weren't humping the air like Bret Michaels.
Hey baby, let's go out and slam some Jack Daniels and go out and fuck all night.
A 1990 Dokken album would have been the best thing I've ever heard.
I think it's absolutely impressive that Dokken has released since 1995 8 fucking albums. Look, I came here to do two things: chew bubblegum and talk hair metal. And it looks like I'm almost out of bubblegum. Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And I got my good buddy Ryan here because today we're going to talk about Dokken. Today is part 3 in the new series that I am calling 10 Things I Think I Think. And I think that we haven't talked about Dokken enough on this channel at all. Like, really, when I look back, I'm sure they came up a couple times in when we were talking about the years and the albums, but they've never gotten a video strictly dedicated to them, and they need one. And I got my good buddy Ryan here to talk about it. With that, Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back. It's a band that I would love to talk about over and over. There's no shortage of Dokken information, so this was a very easy 10 things I think about Dokken, whether it be the bad press, the good press, but really, to me, this band deserves no bad press. They came out with amazing, amazing albums, and I love cranking all their stuff. So I'm happy to talk about Dokken.
One of those bands that I think, and maybe this will come up, but they were just always right underneath the superstars, the Bon Jovis, the Poisons. They never quite made it to headline to, that headlining status for whatever reason, and maybe we'll get into some of that. But I feel like they deserved better than what they got. So with that, hey, before we get started, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. If you like, this talk about hair metal, 80s rock, heavy metal, the greatest musical generation of all time, like, subscribe, what the hell, ring the bell if you would like notifications. Special shout out to my members who pay a couple bucks a month. It's an option. You sometimes get early access to videos, you get first response to comments. And also, before we get into it, I know that Ryan, lead singer of the band Metalcast, so could I forget to bring that up, has something to show us, an epic shirt from. So Ryan, show us what you got here.
Cool. So this, I didn't wear it, but this is a Whitesnake. It was actually Scorpions. It was a Scorpions shirt. Scorpions, Whitesnake, and Dokken. There we go. Tour shirt from 2003. And we were talking before the show. I think either Kip Winger solo or Tesla. And for those out there that are watching this, please correct me. I can't remember who opened the show, but I think there was a fourth band. But Dokken sounded great. This was still in Don's, vocal ability heyday, which may or may not come up as well. But he sounded great. Scorpions were amazing as usual, and it was the first time and only, I think it was my only time seeing Whitesnake. And David Coverdale was very gentlemanly. He had his proper white shirt and his nice jeans and his white sneakers on. And the song that stands out the most, and I know this is a Dokken episode, but the Whitesnake part of it was Judgment Day. And I don't know what it was about that. I love that song, but I didn't really appreciate it until I saw this show. And it was a really cool package show. It was in an arena. And anyway, so I'm glad I kept that shirt. I'm glad I bought the shirt. It was probably off some scalper outside, but it worked out well. So
That's
A
a
huge
great fucking
Dokken fan.
lineup. And there's Whitesnake is another band that we haven't talked a ton about. And I
Yeah,
was just saying, shit, was it on X or something? I actually put a YouTube short up that said, I do not like old Whitesnake. I
right.
don't like that organy, deep purple, slow bluesy shit. So I have said that Whitesnake doesn't exist for me until the Slide It In album. And that's where
Yeah,
they
well, and you and I are on the exact same page. To me, Whitesnake has 2.5 albums. Half of Slide It In, 87, and Slip of the Tongue.
exactly. Exactly. So I've started, and I'm only going to show one. I've started buying cassettes. For what reason? I have no fucking clue, other than I just like to collect anything related to hair metal. So I bought a big box of old cassettes on eBay, and I am going to release a video where I show you all the shit I got. There's like 35 cassettes, but one of them was the Dream Warriors cassette single. And if you remember singles, they used to like, or they would come in like a cardboard cover. Well, this one is actually the plastic hardcover. So, great song. Fucking what an opportunity to have like the theme song from one of the biggest movie series of the 80s. Maybe
Oh
that
yeah.
will come up somewhere in here. So, with that, let's get into it. 10 things we think about Dokken. And let's have Ryan start it off. Ryan, what's your number 10?
All right, cool. Well, my number 10. So I'm gonna kind of I don't have any particular order, but one
No.
that I want to throw out like immediately, and it's probably like more or less my number one, is God, I wish they could have just kept their shit together for
Yeah.
2 more years and produced a 1990 Dokken album. I know it would have been hands down the best thing they've ever done.
Right.
1990 was made for Dokken. You
Yes.
know, you think about the styles. I know, it's cliche to talk about hair bands and what they looked like, but think about the style. Think about like how they looked on Up from the Ashes, or open up the Steelheart album cover from 1990 and look at the way they looked. That was made for Don Dokken, made
Right.
for Dokken. It was a little bit more mature stuff then. A 1990 Dokken album would have been the best thing I've ever heard. It would have been hands down my favorite of their career. And look at Up from the Ashes and Wicked Sensation. They were almost there. They're both great. I love those two albums so much. But get Don and George Lynch and Jeff Pilson, and I'm sure Mick, to put their heads together and focus one more time. It would have been hands down my favorite Dokken album. And I think 1990 would have been the most epic year for them and catapulted them to immediate arena headliner status.
I'm glad you brought that up. I do have one coming up later where we'll talk about Up from the Ashes. But I'm right with you. Their last album, Back from the Attack, came out in 87. Now they released Beast from the East, the live album, in 88. But so I'll even, it was pretty regular for bands to take 2 years between an album. So
Yeah.
if this said Dokken album came out, ooh, fucking, remember when that shit used to happen all the time? Like I
Yeah.
would have confetti and fucking balloons, and now it's like it never happens again.
It
Now
only happens on something so
on
special
something
like a
special, a
1990,
Dokken
89 and
episode.
90 Dokken album.
So I think if said Dokken album comes out in 80, and I agree, 90, but 89, 90, absolutely. They've been begging for something to happen to get them to headline status. I think that's the year they had just come off the Monsters Rock tour. Fuck.
Exactly.
And it was just the wrong time to break up. So I'm completely with you.
Yeah,
Completely.
and they would have been like that band who was like, dude, we just toured forever. The stadium tour in '88, it was so killer
Yes.
and huge, and we took a little bit of time off. They probably deserved it, and
Yeah.
then they would come up with some killer shit, and then
Yeah.
finally released it in '90. Dude, I have said it forever. This would have been an epic, perfect year for those guys. It was tailor made for Dawkins, and I'm so bummed it's never going to happen.
I'm right with you. I'm right with you. My number 10. I think it's absolutely impressive that Dokken has released since 1995 8 fucking albums. You know, I know that like releasing an album nowadays isn't the moneymaker that it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
I get it. But damn, it's just so disappointing that so many of these bands, Poison, I'm talking to you, just settle into the nostalgia market, content to play fly-in shows and never playing anything past 1992. Hold on, I gotta let Charlie in. And just give up on making new music. But here Dokken is out there writing, recording, releasing new albums, and yes, knowing that they probably aren't going to sell a ton, they
Yeah.
probably aren't going to make a ton. But when you started making albums earlier in your career, no, you were like, hey, hopefully maybe the stars will shine on us, maybe we'll hit that 1 in a million chance and something will hit. Well, I still think that's true, less so, but you can't have a hit unless you're recording albums.
Yeah.
And Dawkins still does that. They just released one in 2023. So you can't have a hit if you don't fucking write it. And I salute Dokken for still saying, you know what? We're musicians. What we do is write music. The reason we can, it's basically Don now. The reason I can still go out and play shows and make money as a musician is because of the music I wrote. I'm going to continue doing that. So, Dokken, amen. Hallelujah, brother.
Nice, dude. Well, you know what? Since I really have no order on
Yep.
these, other than my number one, which was kind of my number 10, I'll say this one now. So my number 10 actually was, I topped off my Dokken album knowledge on Erase the Slate and Live from the Sun, and I totally neglected their new releases since
Yep.
then.
Yep.
Now, when I say neglected, I either bought it or listened to it on Spotify or something.
Yep.
There were several that came out pre internet-ish stuff, like
Yep.
pre-YouTube, pre-Spotify, or Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. And I had to buy it or listen to it. Like Long Way Home, I think was one of it, like first one from like the early 2000s. So I believe I own those. But I will say that I have neglected those. So
Sure.
I probably shouldn't, because the most recent release, I did watch the videos,
Mm-hmm.
and Don really spruced up his voice in
Yep.
those, and especially the last one, which he has to do. But I definitely have neglected those. So I probably should pay more attention to them, because they have some really quality musicians.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some great music that I'm missing out on.
Hey, I'm right with you. I mean, there are Dokken albums that out of those 8 that I have probably barely ever listened to. I am gonna get to one that I'm gonna talk about from that time. So I'm with you. I'm sometimes I feel like shit, you're a shitty fan if you haven't sat and I try to buy them on CD when they come out, but I don't always spend a bunch of time with them. So
Yeah, of course, yeah, and it's hard because you think of Dokken as having set albums from like 83 to 87, 88 ish,
yeah.
and then enter the next phase. Like a few of them are tolerable, and then you kind of forget about them, which is sad.
And I'll get to one that wasn't tolerable here in a little bit.
I bet we will.
So that's your number 9, right?
That will be my number 9 at this point, because I'm out of order. I was going to go right as phase right into it.
Mine are not like my number 1 isn't mine are just kind of in random order. So it's not like my number 1 is my most important one. I was like 10, here's 1, here's another one, and I just did it that way.
Perfect. So, me too. Yeah.
My number 9, I think that the song Walk Away from the live Beast from the East album should have been the massive hit that Dokken had been waiting for. And if it had come out on the album that you were just talking about, the 89 or 90 album, It might have, but it came out on a live album. It was the only new song
Yeah,
on that live album. So, live albums weren't, that live album went gold, which is pretty good for a live album. But
yeah,
if it had come out on a regular album, and I might even have something later on where I talk about ballads because I love pussy ballads, isn't that right, Brian from the Hairband Basement? Um, so, but amazing song. I think it could have been. They needed that big, huge ballad that turned them from a platinum band into a multi-platinum band.
uh-huh.
And and what makes that song even more poignant and maybe more special is that it came out on the album that was, they had to put out this live album because they were breaking up, you
Yeah,
know. So walk away. And, so here's some lyrics from it. Just walk away. There will be no more tomorrows. Just to walk away. You won't be there for me. From far away, I tried to say I'm sorry, but I can't find a way to just walk away. I feel like, yes, that could be, your girlfriend or the love of your life, but it also feels like, hey, I'm walking away from this band because we just
yeah.
can't make it work anymore. In a
Oh,
way that
totally.
kind of reminds me of Farewell to You from White Lion,
Yep,
kind of
exactly.
saying goodbye to the band.
Yeah, yeah. Just like that was kind of their last recorded deal. This is the same with Dokken, and the like I was saying about the 89 90. Think about this music video and the way they present themselves. Dokken was a much more mature band. They weren't lighting shit on fire like
Right.
Motley. They weren't humping the air like Bret Michaels. They were, staging themselves in a classy home with a classy outfit and blah
Yep.
blah blah. Don was a little bit older. Don's not that much younger than my dad, who was born in 47. I don't know exactly what year Don was born, but he's not that much younger. So
Right.
he was like getting up there, dude. So like he was kind of like of the House of Lords classier kind of shit going on, and it fit them well. But he pulled it off really well. And
Totally.
so I believe I touch on this as well in terms of their what they could have done
Yep.
had it been a huge ballad coming
Yeah.
up. But yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You weren't getting the, hey baby, let's go out and slam some Jack Daniels and go out and fuck all night. You
yeah,
weren't getting that kind of lyric from Dokken.
no,
It was
no,
always, a little bit more like, relationship wise or, but yeah, they
yeah,
weren't a party rock band
no, not at
at
all.
all. Okay,
No.
we're on to your number 8. What do you got?
Okay. Yep. Okay. So breaking the chains. Okay. The chorus. Okay. Well, first of all, the song "Breaking the Chains." I love it. Great rocker. The chorus to "In the Middle." Cool chorus. Paris is Burning. Very good. But those are really the only like hard rock songs on that album. And the rest of the album is kind of weird, like soft new wavy shit.
Right.
And in the last few years, Metal Mike and I did a 80 to 83 album ranking. And of course, I had like Def Leppard, AC/DC, Motley Crue, Crocus,
Yep.
and Dokken. I was like, oh, I got to have Breaking the Chains. And then I listened to it again. And it had been years since I listened to it through and through.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I love Breaking the Chains. And
Right.
it kind of ends there, which is really weird because I think of Dokken as like 80s hard rock. And this album is not that far back in their career. Because you think about the next album was Tooth and Nail from
Yep.
84, and it's like pure fucking killer.
Yeah.
And this album, I know they were cooking it up for a while or whatever. Don was solo for a while, all that
Yep.
bullshit. But Breaking the Chains, the album, is not the hard rock album you think it is.
Completely correct. And I'm going to change my order now because I have something to add on to that. So here's my number 8. I think people forget that Dokken actually started off as a Don Dokken solo band.
That's right.
And Juan Crucier of Rat was on bass and helped write that album.
That's
And
right.
the album Breaking the Chains came out in 1981. First, before we get the 1983 generally accepted Breaking the Chains debut. It came out in 81 as a Don Dokken solo album and was re-released in 83 when the classic lineup was solidified. So it's, you know, for people who aren't, avid fans of this genre of music, you probably didn't know that. So I also have this on before that, before it had come out in 83. George had actually tried out for Ozzy's solo band
That's
and
right.
had apparently been hired, but was fired before he actually did anything, which accelerated his joining Dokken. Okay. So, anyway, when people talk about the hatred between George and Don, I think part of it comes from the fact that Dokken wasn't a band that started with George in mind.
Right.
George was paid to play on a Don Dokken solo album. So I think, or here's so this is still part of my number 8, but I think George might have felt more like a hired gun rather than someone who built a band from the ground up. And shit, the band he joined was named Dokken after
Yeah.
the singer.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that helped create the friction between George and Don.
Well,
That's
not to
my
mention
number 8.
Don was a hell of a guitar player.
Yes.
You know, and he is a hell of a guitar player.
Yes.
And he I mean, look at the video in Breaking the Chains. He's slinging a guitar,
Yep.
and he's used to that.
Yeah.
And so it was out there that Don and George clashed because of the guitar playing aspect of it,
Right.
which is silly because I have a feeling it's similar comparison to like when Sammy and Eddie were together. Sammy was like,
Sure.
"Dude, I play guitar," and Eddie was
Sure.
like, "Really, bro? Like,
Right.
like I master guitar."
Right.
So similar to that.
Right. Exactly. So, all right. We are now moving on, and now I probably get fucked up because I'm like, okay, I'm going to move this here. So we're on to your number 7. So what do you got?
Okay, cool. So I believe that Tooth and Nail contains
Or you
three.
think? No, I'm just kidding.
I think
Yeah.
that Tooth and Nail contains three of the strongest album tracks of their career in Heartless Heart, Bullets to Spare, and Don't Close Your Eyes. This is one of those albums that it's there's two Dokken albums that I can just think, press play. Tooth and Nail and Back for the Attack. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Under Lock and Key a lot.
Yep.
But these two albums I can just let go. And I chose these three album tracks. I left off Turn on the Action, I believe is the other one. But yeah, these three they're like power age good where you're just like let it play, dude. Like this
Yep.
album is amazing. And boy
Right.
did they change their tune from 83 to 84.
Yeah.
So, Tooth and
Yes.
Nail, those three awesome.
Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah, the breaking the chains to tooth and nail, like holy fuck,
Yeah,
right? Like what a dramatic change, but yep.
totally.
Okay. My number 7, and this isn't necessarily as music related, but I think I was shocked to see George Lynch ripped and roided in the late 90s as a bodybuilder, right? Do you remember
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I loved it.
Oh, fuck. He came out later and said he was using steroids.
Yeah.
But what a fucking transformation. But I have a theory about this. It's not easy to go from being on top, to suddenly being an average Joe. Like when I was in high school, I was a pretty decent basketball player. But then you get older and you're like, fuck, I suck now. You want to find something that, you're good at that you can say, hey, look at me. I mean, if you have that kind of personality, and most musicians have that. Now, I'm not saying not everybody's going to go out and do steroids, but you try to find a way to get back on top at something.
Yeah.
So I think George was like, fuck, my bands aren't going to go out and sell platinum albums in the late 90s, but I'm going to fucking get ripped. I can do that. And he did. Now, he said
Mm.
later on that he regretted it, that it kind of hurt his guitar playing. He said he dealt with like cramps a lot. And I think he had some health issues from it. But anyway, the dude still looks jacked, and I wouldn't want to fuck with George Lynch.
No, dude, I love bodybuilding. I absolutely like in my earlier days was really into weightlifting, and I thought George Lynch was right on for that.
Oh,
Not the steroid use, of
no,
course. I'm
no,
not condoning that,
no. But
but
I
I thought he looked great, and you could tell
totally.
though he was one of those guys that was always ripped, always pretty really tan, which
Yep.
helps
Yeah.
bodybuilding, obviously. But looking at those videos from like the mid and late '90s, dude, he was right there. He was like in the minor leagues of bodybuilding.
Oh
So,
shit. Yeah.
dude, he looked great. Now, I didn't know that he was actually on roids, and it's
Yeah.
kind of bumming me out that he had to go that route. But
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, I read an interview and he said, dude, nobody can get like that
yeah,
without using roids.
yeah,
You know?
it's like Kane Roberts talking about. Oh, I ate a lot of chicken and fish. That's
Yeah.
what helped me. That's I
Yeah.
swear.
I mean, I went through I've always tried to be, I ran a marathon once. I've tried to be really, and there was a period in like shit, the mid 2000s where I was like, I'm gonna try to get big.
Yeah,
I was doing the whey protein. I was scooping peanut butter in my mouth. I was lifting hard. And I got, like I benched 275 once, which for me was fucking, I was never
yeah.
great at bench. But I was bigger, but I was like, how the fuck are these guys getting? Well, it was fucking roids because I was lifting pretty hard for a couple of years. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. And I'll add this just really quick. That was my number 7. That I think something that hurt Dokken, and this was almost going to make my list, but I'll just throw it in there, was they didn't have the pinup. Not that Don was bad looking, he was a decent looking guy, but they didn't have Brett Michaels or Sebastian Bach or John Bon Jovi up
Yeah.
front. And that was always, the music was obviously most important, but if you could sell that sex symbol, and that George was probably, and in the 80s, it's not, he was just another. So I think they were hurt by not having that front man god, god of rock.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I kicked around putting that on my list as well because I've said that for years. Is that had they had that, they would
Yeah,
have been immense,
totally,
but they didn't.
totally.
And Don really, you could pretty Don up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you could pretty Jeff Pilson up too, but
yeah,
it wasn't quite there. So, kind of like the Queensryche TNT Sabotage thing, like they were almost too talented and too good, and
yeah.
they attracted more of like the guitar nerds
Right,
versus the chicks or
right.
whatever. But anyway, but
Just
look at Heavy Metal Parking Lot with Judas Priest and
yeah.
Dokken opening, like they attracted some pretty younger like happening people. So maybe we're totally wrong.
We could probably pretty you up, Then maybe
Oh,
a
I've been there.
couple beers and a back massage would probably get you right in the mood too, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, just kidding.
Yeah, let's
All
do
right,
this.
all right, all right. I think we're to your number 6.
All right, cool. So here's where I think that Sleepless Nights on Back for the Attack has one of the best riffs of the entire decade. And I'll say this, I compare it to a couple songs. Slowpoke Music off Slip of
Hmm.
the Tongue, Whitesnake.
Yep.
She's My Salvation off Poetic Justice, Lillian. And Lay It Down by Rat.
Yeah.
I fucking love this riff, and Mick's drum intro into this is so on point as well. So, for those of you that have neglected Sleepless Nights, it is a slow churner, awesome song, and I love this riff.
I want it's not one of the ones that I was gonna put in my list was just like a list of my favorite George Lynch riffs and just
Yeah.
talking about like his tone and
Oh, yeah.
like and like I liked how Dokken and a lot of their songs, a lot of my favorites, the guitar is really high up in the mix.
Yep.
And sometimes I listen to some bands that I love, and I'm like, the guitar seems like I'm like it should be louder. Like I don't feel like I'm hearing it enough. Dokken, I always liked how they placed their guitar in the mix. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's a great riff. I'm completely with you.
On that real quick, and it just came to me. I think the Hunter, I read or listened to an interview where the Hunter was supposed to be an instrumental. And
Really?
yeah, and I'm so glad it's not, because I mean, I like Mr. Scary and I like instrumentals, but the Hunter became such a killer song. And for, I think it was George thinking like, this is going to be my crown jewel. This is going to be my, like my staple instrumental thing.
Right.
And hopefully it was Don that came up with the melody behind it.
Right.
But what a great song the Hunter is.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of them that, like you're saying, was going to be a George Lynch instrumental, which is odd. But anyway, just a side
Before I
note.
got on here, like a couple hours ago, I posted on X at Hair Metal Guru, by the way. I said, hey, in a couple hours, gonna be recording an episode on Dokken. Would love to hear some of your thoughts. And somebody, now I can't remember who it was, but said that Mr. Scary is one of the most epic instrumentals of all time. And I'm
Yeah.
not a big instrumental guy. Okay.
Yeah.
But that is like it's a cool guitar riff.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been known as Mr. Scary ever since, but
Yeah. And you really got to have a riff that stands out. I mean, the ones that I
yes.
think of are like Eric Johnson has Cliffs of Dover. Obviously, like Eddie has Eruption.
Yeah.
Steve Vai has some good stuff. Joe Satriani has Summer Song. And George has Mr. Scary. And I'm sure I'm leaving out a few, but like those are the ones that, and I'm not like that either. I don't need an instrumental, but those, I'm like, fuck, if those can stand out in my mind, then they're doing something.
In my upcoming solo album, I'm gonna have a penis bass solo. Boom, 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 boom. Anyway, okay. I wish I played an instrument. It's fucking sucks, but I
Bass
don't.
sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. I know a buddy of mine in college used to always we'd get drunk and he'd a song I'd be playing. And he'd just like, "Ooh, I got the penis bass." Dun, bum, 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 dun. Anyway,
I
I
think
stole
Brian
that
plays
from
the
him.
skin flute.
Yep, the skin flute.
Yeah,
Yep,
Brian plays that one, right?
that's right. That's right. Daily, hourly, probably.
See, when he's not here, I can talk as much smack as I want.
Should if it wasn't for Brian, Jergens hand lotion would probably go out of business. Okay. Anyway, my number 6, I think buying the 1997 Shadow Life album was one of the biggest wastes of 12 bucks you can imagine. I mean, like I'm a completist, so I think I'm worse at it nowadays, but I used to like, hey, I got to buy everything from the bands I love. I got to have all their CDs. In the last 10 years, I've probably failed at that. But holy fuck. If you haven't bought Shadow Life and you're thinking about it, here's my suggestion. How about you just give me 12 bucks? I'll come over, kick you in the balls, and we'll both go home just as satisfied as you would be if you actually listened to it. It is fucking horrible. And I have heard that George, this is and I think I might have heard this from Razor Fist. I'm going to talk about Razor Fist here in a little bit, but he had suggested, and I'm sure he heard it from somewhere, that George was like trying to ruin Dokken because George wrote all these songs. Don didn't even let him use the Dokken fucking logo on that album, and it's a down-tuned, horrible late '90s album, and it sucks.
Yeah, I went back and listened again.
Yep.
I think Jeff Pilson talked about this in an 80s Glam Metalcast episode,
Okay. Yep.
and it was on CMC. I
Yes,
think it was on. So
it was.
if you remember, CMC was always almost there. Like there's like 5 CMC records that are pretty cool.
Yep.
And they fucked up album covers, they fucked up band logos, and they influenced these bands to be terrible, even though they wanted them to be like true to form. And Jeff talks about it, I believe, in that one. And dude, I couldn't agree more. This thing it's far worse than the Generation Swines or the
Oh,
Slangs or the, you name it, band, Change of Address, Crocus, whatever. Like it's just out there, and I don't know what they were thinking. That the album cover says it all.
yeah, the album cover sucks. And
Yeah,
this is 1997. So at that time in my life, I'm like, fuck, I miss my hair metal, my rock bands. So I
yeah,
rushed out to buy this thing right away. And you're like, son of a bitch, you
yeah.
are shitting me. I mean, it's that horrible. And I'm gonna get into the previous album, fucking Dysfunctional, at some point
Hmm.
in this thing. But that was a solid album. And this, you're like, what the fuck did you guys do? So
I
anyway,
know.
so that's
And
my number
and you
six.
know what? For me, I was 10 years late to the party. So I was buying Metal Edge magazine and I was super into Dokken at this point.
Yeah,
This is when I like kind of discovered them, to be honest.
yeah,
Like I said, 10 years late to the party just due to my age. And this was in all the magazines, and I was like, oh shit, a new Dokken album.
yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out. And I probably bought it. I don't know if it was on tape or CD at the time, but dude, I was like, this isn't as cool as YNT's Musically Incorrect. This isn't as cool as Crocus's To Rock or Not to Be or AC/DC's Ball Breaker. Like, I thought they all came out with really cool mid 90s albums.
Yeah.
But then there's this. And I was like,
How old would you have been in 97?
16.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit.
So,
Anyway.
anyway.
All right. On to your number five.
All right. So Jeff Pilson is the musical secret weapon in Dokken. His voice is amazing. Check out One Live Night. He sings lead and he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's obviously proved himself over the decades. And also in interviews, he just seems like the nicest, most polite, genuine, down to earth guy.
Right.
And I think Jeff Pilson is like what you want in a rock star, because there's guys like Axel that I don't do, and like Sebastian, because of their attitude.
Yeah.
And Axel is a fraction away from every other band I listen to the layman, to the novice or whatever. I don't dig his voice, which is weird, I know, but his attitude doesn't help. And then you got a guy like Jeff Pilson, who seems like just such a killer dude,
Yeah.
and humble and talented, and been in every band, MSG, which I love his 91 album. And now he's in Foreigner. So, and check out War and Peace. Like he's got a lot of shit going, but he was the secret weapon in Dokken, and I love me some Jeff Pilson.
I mean, Metal Mike from the 80s Glam Metal Cast had him
Yeah.
on for an interview. I've seen a
Yeah.
bunch of his interviews on YouTube. And and I mean, hey, check out my Steve Blaze interview. Steve Blaze seems exactly the same way. They
Exactly.
don't, you don't get the feeling like some guys, you're like, ah, shit. They seem like, oh, fuck, you're gonna ask that question. Oh, I've heard, they're like, yes, hey, I'm interested. Let me answer whatever question you have. And
Yeah.
because I value you and your time. Whereas guys like Axel, Sebastian, a lot of they seem like I'm a little too good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it since I'm here. And it makes it easy to shit on gun like in the videos. Had somebody comment the other day, and now I'm getting off topic, but anyway, uh like, how come people shit on the Use Your Illusion albums? Well, it makes it easy to shit on Guns N' Roses because Axl seems like such a douchebag.
Yeah.
It's easy to shit on Sebastian Bach because Sebastian is a douchebag. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's when guys seem nice and just like, hey, I appreciate where I am and the fans have put me there. I root for those guys. I rush
Yeah.
out to buy their albums
Oh
because
yeah.
they seem like good guys. So I'm with you.
Yeah. Even on the God, what year was it? Probably 86. They had released their home video VHS. I can't remember Maybe it was called Unchained the Night. I can't remember what it was called,
Okay.
but he's even genuine there. He's like in a hotel room with George Lynch, and they're doing their rocker thing, and he's like nice and down to earth and cool
Yeah.
in that. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, he should have been in his like peak cockiness. But anyway, he's the same guy. I love it.
And the dude's a good singer too. I mean, so
Oh yeah, that's what I was
you
saying.
know,
Like the One Live Night out.
multi-talented.
Yeah, the One Live Night. I think he does Just Got Lucky on
And
One Live
didn't
Night.
he sing on I don't have it, but that TNN album?
Yep. I think
He
he
sang
did.
on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Was that like it was like Robert Mason, and then I think he also or God, my
Because TNN was Mick Brown, George Lynch, and Jeff Pilson without
okay.
Don Dokken. But
That's
I
right. Yeah.
and again I heard a couple songs from it, but I don't know if he sang everything, but I know he was at least sang a lot of that album.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I'm thinking of the next band, which I can't remember. They had Robert Mason on
Okay.
vocals. What was that one called?
Shit. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Robert
it was a
Mason.
good album though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay. All right. That was your number five, right?
yeah,
And this is my number
something
five.
like that. I lost track because of our.
Whatever. We'll get through them. Okay. I think I was shocked when Dokken had a legitimate hit, at least in Fargo, North Dakota, with Too High to Fly off the Dysfunctional album. And
Yep.
that song is one of my favorite Dokken songs ever. So
Nice.
1995, you get, I mean, there is Warrant wasn't getting airplay with Ultraphobic, unfortunately. Like this is the peak, like, okay, we're all done. I mean, the Motley Crue 94 album, well, obviously came out in 94, huge failure. And all of a sudden on the radio station Q98 in Fargo, North Dakota, they're like, here's the new Dawkins song, Too High to Fly. And they used to do like, hey, call in and request in the top 10. And that song was in the top 10 requests for like, I don't know, a couple weeks, I think. So we
Yeah.
were driving around hearing this new Dawkins song. So the album never went gold, but according to the almighty Wikipedia, Don has suggested that it sold 400,000 copies.
Hmm.
Is that correct? I don't know. But I know it debuted in on Billboard at number 47, which was really fucking high for a hair metal band, if you want to call Dokken, a lot of people don't think they're hair metal, for a hair metal band in 1995. So even if it sold 400,000 copies, that is actually amazing in 1995.
That is. So like I said, I went back to Shadow Life. I went back to Dysfunctional. I, I'm not quite there with either of those. Obviously, Shadow Life, but
Yeah.
Dysfunctional. There's a couple riffs on there where I'm
Yes.
like, okay, this is true to form, George. I like it, but there's something about the production that kind of
Sure.
started pissing me off. So I don't think I'm ever gonna be there with
Yeah.
that album because it's not Back for the Attack or it's would have been follow up. So I'm
Yep.
still working on that one. Maybe eventually.
I don't know. I don't know if I love the album. I love that song. And I like some of the album. There are some songs on there that I'm like, eh. But
Yeah.
I think that song, even though I mean, it definitely is, you can hear the influence of the 90s on it. That riff is
Yes.
kind of, a little bit lower. I don't know if it's down tuned, but whatever, kind of a darker
Yep.
riff. But anyway,
Yep.
I do really fucking love that song. And like I said, it was just shit. It was a hit in Fargo, North Dakota, kind of.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, we're on to your number four. What do you
All
got?
right. So here's where I got my preaching of Back for the Attack. I think it's my hands down choice Dokken album. And I also think that a huge ballad, which we kind of touched on earlier, would have made this album like 4 or 5 times platinum. And I mean, Walk Away was great, but it seems like Don, like Eric Martin and like Mark Free and like Gary Sharon, these guys were meant for their ballads.
Yeah.
And Don could have cranked something out that would have been so heartstring tugging. It would have been amazing. And I know that George was hesitant to put out a ballad on this album. And I think it was his ego and not his bank account speaking, because this would have made them epically huge. And I'm bummed they didn't from their perspective. Don't get me wrong. It's my favorite Dokken album, and I
Yeah.
love every minute of it. But I think from their perspective, it would have catapulted them and perhaps made them stick together for my would-be, you know, imaginary Dokken 1990 album.
Okay. I'm gonna change the order. Again, they're not in, they weren't in like least important to most important, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna change because I have one. I think my favorite Dokken album is 1985's Under Lock and Key, but I think they fucked up by not releasing. Hold on, am I right? By not releasing one of the ballads,
yeah,
either Slipping Away or Jaded Heart as a single. The album
exactly.
did well. It went platinum. It went to number 32 on Billboard. But here's where I continue. But I think one of the things that kept the band from taking the next step to being a multi-platinum arena headlining band is they never had a huge ballad. Alone Again was a great ballad on 1984's Tooth and Nail, but did they ever have another? No. And
No,
Back for the Attack should have been. This is 1987. Bon Jovi, Poison, Cinderella had huge albums out, and they
yeah,
all have massive hits with a ballad. So you don't have a huge fucking ballad on that. I think that was a huge mistake. Fuck the band.
yeah. And I'll just comment on that album real quick. So, like on social media, they do like I was today's years old when I figured out
Yes,
whatever. Well, there's a guy named Ty Oliver, and I don't know if you know Ty Oliver, but
I've heard that name.
he is the guitar player for the band Orgy. And Ty Oliver grew up in Santa Cruz, California, where I grew up. And he and I was the singer in his band for like 10 minutes in like the early 2000s.
No shit.
And he
Okay.
told me, he goes, dude, the Under Lock and Key album, the key is just the Dokken emblem turned upright. And I was like, what? I thought it was exactly. So I had no idea until like a few years ago that was that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. And then also on that album, the song Lightning Strikes Again, that's what it's called, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And right before the chorus, the wow, that part, that's like the most quintessential perfect Dokken of that album for me.
Right.
Like I love the hits. Lightning Strikes is so killer, and that oh part is so fucking killer. It's like Dokken being like priesty right there, and it's so rad. So I love that album, dude. So good call.
All right. All right. Okay. Are we on to your number three?
Yeah, I just bullshitted about yours.
No, that's okay. All right. No, that's what I want here. Your number three.
All right, cool. Well, here's where I got to put my favorite Dokken song, and it is Burning Like a Flame. I think that Burning Like a Flame is an amazing song, probably my favorite. And I will say this, the video is absolutely god awful,
Oh,
like a few of theirs, but this video is absolutely awful. But Burning Like a Flame, I love songs that have that, like the singer starts off solo and then this epic riff comes in and they kind of trade off, trade off, trade off. And then the bridge is huge, the chorus is huge. I love that so much. And I'm so bummed that they didn't include it on Beast from the East,
oh, right.
because that I'm sure they played it,
Yeah.
but they just didn't put it on the album. But dude, man, that's such a beast of a song. I love it.
Oh, that's a fucking great song. And so in response to that X post where I said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on Dokken?" Somebody said shitty videos.
Oh, there you go.
And yeah, they weren't known for their great video. You know, like Bon Jovi had great fucking videos.
Yeah,
Dokken had shit videos.
exactly.
So, okay. All right. My number three. I think if you really want to get your Dokken groove on, go watch. Do you know this Razor Fist, the Rageaholic?
Love Razor Fist.
Okay. So go to the Rageaholic YouTube channel and watch his Metal Mythos on episode on Dokken. It's just basically a Dokken documentary. He's done Black Sabbath. He just released like a 2 hour and 20-minute one on Alice Cooper, Judas Priest, Saxon. He talks politics. He talks video gaming. So the dude is in Arizona. He's funny as shit. I've been watching him for I don't know a few years now,
Yeah,
and so he and I kind of agree politically.
yeah,
Um, and the guy knows music and shit. I'm actually kind of honored. The dude has like 300,000 X followers and he follows like 700 people and he follows the channel. So I've seen him like comment on the YouTube channel.
yeah.
So, hey, Razor Fist, if you watch this shit, fucking, I salute you. You know, I love your shit. So if I can get people to go check out your channel, awesome. It's an awesome fucking documentary. So go to Rageaholic and watch Metal Mythos on Dokken if you want to get your Dokken groove on.
Nice. Dude, I have shared Razor Fist with so many people.
Yeah.
Mainly it's political. I too share
Yeah.
your political beliefs,
Yep.
and it is hilarious. And I don't know if that guy edits anything, but he speaks like an automatic rifle. Like I cannot believe how fast he is, and the shit that comes out of his mouth
I'm
is
like, he and shit. I hope you. In fact, when I share this on X, I'm gonna tag him on it and just say, hey, talked a little bit about you, blah blah blah, all good. I he always wears sunglasses. Does he
yeah.
write everything down? Is he reading it? Which I wouldn't blame him. Fuck, I mean,
No.
I do that too sometimes. I write down my fucking notes and I got them underneath and I kind of glance at them from time to
Oh
time.
yeah.
But yeah, the dude talks a fucking mile a minute and is hilarious and has these one-liners, and you're like, is that all coming out the top of his head? I that would be really hard to do.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm assuming, but hey, whatever. Anyway, I salute his channel. Go check it out. It's fucking awesome. So
Awesome. Yeah.
okay.
Cool.
All right. That was my number three. We're on to your number two. What do you got?
Okay. I think that Dokken has included three of the best guitar players in the business, being Lynch, Reb Beach, and John Norum. And I actually got to see Dokken in, I don't know what year it was, but John Norum was in the band and they were playing in a tiny, tiny little club in San Francisco. And George actually, like in between, I'm sorry, George, Don, in between one of the songs, said, gosh, damn, this is smaller than our rehearsal room. And it was kind of sad now that I think about it because they were playing a club and they were, used to playing arenas.
Yeah.
And fast forward a year, they were playing in an arena with Scorpions and Whitesnake.
Right.
But like prior to that, they were potentially going to be the headliners of said arena. And they were in stadiums with Scorpions and the Monsters of Rock tour.
Yep.
So anyway, it was cool to see Norum that close. And anyway, I just think that their guitar player choice has been amazing. And since then, they've had other guitar players that are also awesome.
It's
But those
John
are like,
Levin. If it's
yeah,
Levin or Levine, Levin, I think, is
yeah,
fucking good.
yeah. And his story is
Overall.
cool. I think he's like an attorney,
Yeah.
and like, so he's like successful in his own right. And then just decided like, sure, I'll play, I'll
Yeah.
play guitar and Dokken as well. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that's cool.
Yeah. When they talk about like, bands that, like Ozzy always gets credit for all these genius
Yeah,
guitarists, that well, fucking Dawkins had a shitload of great guitar players as well. So,
totally. Yeah.
all right. My number two. I think I have no problem saying that I can play Don Dawkins' 1990 solo album, Up From the Ashes, next to the classic Dokken albums and still think it's really fucking good. I mean, he had, well, we just talked John Norum from Europe on guitar, Peter
Yeah.
Baltus from Accept on bass, Mickey D from Motorhead on drums. I mean, shit, that's a talented fucking band. And I
Yeah.
feel like if that had, and we kind of talked about this, if you had put the best of that album along with the best of George's Lynch Mob shit and come up with a Dokken album, and we kind of hit on that, come out in 1990, you know, it would have been phenomenal. So, uh,
Absolutely.
I think as a solo album, it was viewed as a failure sales wise, but musically it wasn't. Crash and Burn, Thousand Miles Away, Mirror Mirror was a minor hit. Stay
Yeah.
was a really good ballad, so there was some really good shit on that album.
Well, I obviously can't go out of order at this point because this is my one remaining, and it is Don Dawkins' solo album Up from the Ashes and Lynch Mob Wicked Sensation are both awesome albums. I
Oh,
love them both. I think that I can't decide which one I like better because there's so much great material on both albums. So I totally agree with you. But like I said earlier, they were both right there. They were both on the cusp. Now, had their musical genius had been done this or this, it might
or this.
it might have made for the epic album I was talking about. But I absolutely love both of those albums.
I do need to revisit the Wicked Lynch Mob, Wicked Sensation. I've always, people are like, you don't, it's not that I don't like it. I like it. I never, people are like, oh fuck, that's so awesome. It came out in 92. Shit. It's up there with fucking Poetic Justice and Wild Sides Under the Influence. I've never gotten, so I probably need to re-listen to it, but
Dude,
I like it. It just
yeah,
didn't grab me.
I can't disagree. I mean, I'm a massive Wild Side Under the Influence
Yeah,
fan, massive. Probably more than Poetic Justice,
yeah,
actually.
right.
Um, and Lynch Mob's Wicked Sensation is pretty damn close.
Yeah,
It's right there. There, it
yeah.
you really can't go wrong.
Okay. I need to listen to it again.
Yeah,
Okay. My number one, I think after the shit show that was 1997 Shadow Life, um, I kind of was like, okay, I don't need Dokken anymore. But I
yeah,
think I fell in love with Dokken all over again in 2009. I was in Fort Fort Lewis which is right by Seattle, and I was doing some shit for the army. And I was there for a week, and I had a rental car that had a CD player, and which I have a 2022 truck. I'm so pissed that there's no CD player in it. Like I know I can connect my phone, but I used to love like grabbing five,
yeah,
6 CDs. Anyway, I'm in Fort Lewis and I don't know the radio stations. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to go to Best Buy and buy a couple CDs. Well, I happened to come upon Dawkins' 2008 album, Lightning Strikes Again. And I hadn't listened to Dokken for a long fucking time. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to buy this, bought a couple other things. And I listened to that Lightning Strikes Again album like continuously for a week in that rental car. And I was like, damn it, I think you can put that album again close to their 80s albums. Maybe not, it doesn't grab me as much because, you get closer to albums when you're fucking 16, 15,
yeah.
17, whatever. But it is an awesome Dokken album. So if you haven't revisited the new Dokken albums, start with 2008 Lightning Strike Again, and I'll throw out Heart to Stone, great song. Standing on the Outside, I Remember is a really good ballad, and Point of No Return are four songs that I was just right off the top of my head. I was like, fuck, listen to those, and I think you will. And I think I even remember Don in an interview saying he told his guitar player, look, I want you to go back and I want you to listen to, I think it's John Levin was on that album. He
Yeah.
said, go listen to the old Dokken albums, pick your favorite 10 songs. Doesn't have to be hits. And he goes, put those on a mixed CD for me and give it to me. And we're going to try to come up with something that captures the spirit of 80s Dokken and I feel like they did that on Lightning Strikes Again.
Nice. Well, now I feel like a bad fan because, like I said earlier, I kind of topped off on Erase the Slate, and
I
that's been kind of it.
I haven't, and I feel bad. I haven't like listened to the new Heaven Comes Down, the new album, really. I think I played a few songs on YouTube and just kind of, like today it gets so hard to sit and focus. You got all these options of things to do or listen to. So I feel like I should listen to that because I know some people have said that it's very good. But
Yeah,
like I said, this is back before the internet or before having a cell phone, with all the internet shit. And I was in the car a lot. So that's, I miss, I used to love taking long trips and going, okay, I'm having 10 CDs and I don't care, if I find a couple, I'm going to listen to them all the way through, and take a long drive. And
yeah.
so that was a good opportunity.
Cool. Now I got to
So,
check it out again.
hey, we've gotten to the end of episode or the third in the series of 10 things I think, and Dokken finally gets their own video. I would love it if you went in the comments and hey, tell us were we fucked up on some of the things we thought about Dokken, and tell us what are your thoughts on this highly underrated, I don't know if they're underrated, but they again never got to the level that I think we both agree that they should have gotten to. So tell
Absolutely.
us what you think. Ryan, thank you for coming on and talking about Docket, man.
All right. Thank you for having me. That was great.
That was hey, go check out on YouTube Metalcast and listen to Heavy Metal Rambo and all the shit that they have put out, him and Metal Mike. It's awesome stuff. Hey, like, subscribe, what the hell, ring the bell, and just seriously, I hope you know that when we were talking about rock stars, like I hope people genuinely know, like, man, I appreciate people that come on and watch this stuff and that comment and support the channel. I truly do. Until the next episode comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care.